Picks and bans, let's go. We'll find out what happens in game 2.
It is? Oh, yeah, okay. Anyways, yeah, either way. Obey now in the first pick position. I believe it was Eanix last time. They first picked that Robin and immediately Obey gonna ban that away. That's the first time we've seen real success out of Robin solo in a long time. He really was relegated to that jungle role where he was doing very, very well for himself. But Ducky showing that he could still really dominate that solo lane.
So do we expect Bellona Fafnir, I guess, the last 2 bans here?
More than likely.
Terra first pick.
Oh, okay. It's gonna be Terra ban here, and again,
so
if Eanix wants to run that sort of composition, it destroys Terra. Now it gives them a chance to pick the Bellona if they want it.
Will they take it, though, is a question? They will, of course. Over to Eanix then, and now with the top 2 supports in the meta taken out, Fafnir and Terra, we will see Khepri is the one that they're going to go for.
Right away, that was banned away from Tiggs in game 1, so I like that early selection for him, and it leaves open the Serqet. That's what I was going to talk about, but
that didn't get through last game.
The Morrigan.
Right now?
Yeah, absolutely, for PrettyPriMe, because that gives him a Serqet ult. That's what they were doing consistently at Masters. They use that Serqet ult for themselves. It also gives him a Khepri ult if they need it. Prime is like the guy with the Morrigan in terms of just adjustability, which is not a word, but I'm going to use it anyways because that's what we do here, and it is going to be the Morrigan.
Words. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Over to Eanix then, and what their mid choice is going to be. More than likely, that is Sol in the mid lane. We've not seen too much in the Hunter role just lately, and I'm pretty sure if Cernunnos doesn't get banned, I'm pretty sure Funballer will go back to it.
Yeah, why not? I mean, he was so good on it, but Obey might be the one to select it, but Eanix is the first one with the pick after the ban phase. So
that's what I expect. It should be Obey that ban Cernunnos. They're not going to focus Jingwei, because I think we'll probably see Cernunnos versus Jingwei again. I don't see a reason not to go for that.
I mean, Ataraxia didn't do anything wrong in that game. He just didn't do anything because he didn't have a front line. And that's exactly, you know, what I was saying about PrettyPriMe. Just don't get a chance to do much whenever you don't have a solo laner there in front of you.
Okay, so instead of going for the Cernunnos, which is great on the ground, which is kind of what Sol brings, they've taken Rama for the extra snipes as well. I think it's also to potentially counter-pick that away from if Ataraxia wanted to go for that Transcendence build we've seen out of him before.
Sure, yeah, and Rama is just an overall strong hunter. It's also a ton of push power early for Eanix. Ram, one of the best, I think he is the best level 1 hunter in terms of clear, so you know you're going to have that with Khepri. Yeah, I'm looking at this Naja pick, and tier for Ducky, a god that we haven't seen in a long time. But Naja's always paired with that big burst ultimate, we're going to insta-kill someone.
I'm just about Naja and Tier in the same game. Like, we've not seen one of them for a while, but
what
both
year is this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Naja did get some love, though. Extra ring bounce every single time, which is really helpful in the early game for clearing and for additional poke after a wave.
So as I was talking about with Vulcan, it's either feast or famine. You're either carrying the game or you're just, you know, a non-factor. It's even more to an extreme with Naja in my mind. Naja has that potential to just snowball the early game, is impossible to deal with, can be all over the map, excellent mobility in terms of movement speed after using the ring toss. But if Naja falls behind, it gets really tough really fast.
You know why? Because PrettyPriMe can turn into Naja and do everything that Twig did wrong. There you go. That's the dream. Double Naja ults, double ring toss.
That's what I was about to say. I'm thinking about why the Naja, but you can take someone out of the fight.
Yep.
The Morrigan can transform into Naja and then immediately take them back up before the beads hit.
Perfect. And then when they come down the second time, Maniac comes in with the Eagles Rally. And if they're still alive, EmilZy just lurks in the water and pops. They're dead, whoever they are, but it's only one person dead.
If Obey pulls that off.
If I see double Naja ults one after the other, I'll be impressed. That's something on your pipe dream list of what you thought about when Morrigan first came out.
If they pull it off, FDot's going to give away some gem codes on Twitter.
He is?
Yeah.
How many?
I don't know. I didn't ask him exactly. He just said it. I heard it in my ear.
Did you?
Yeah, he's back in production right now.
Good to know. Well, maybe the cameraman will get better then. I don't know. I just fired shots at our camera for no reason.
What was that about?
I'm sorry, camera.
Salim, I love you.
Meanwhile, Salim has managed to keep track of the buffs on the left-hand side. You saw the invade coming out from Eanix here, looking to try and strip away the purple buff. They don't manage to do it. They did get the babies, though, as Ataraxia secured their own red in the jungle, which seems to be an Order play, it seems. Order seems to like to start their own red or purple and go to late.
Exactly, and there was a Hand of the Gods used there by EmilZy picking up that relic, so no Sunder this time around. The nerf of Meditation. Meditation was just dominant for so long, for the entire spring split of Season 4. We're seeing so much more variance there in the support relic selections.
One of the reasons
Shells, it's
Sunder.
Sprints, it's Sunder.
That's one of the reasons Sunder has come out and been so noticed, is because no one's buying Med anymore. There's an extra relic slot instead that they can look for. And to be fair, junglers would have probably picked up Sunder on its own. We saw a couple of solo laners play with it, but Meditation now being dropped down to being I'd say it's a more solo lane-esque item because of the fact you need the levels to really influence it later on. And the early game is still about the same, to be fair. Yeah,
very true. And I love this Hand of the Gods pickup as Faeles goes in the mid lane. PrettyPriMe doesn't have a real escape, but now Faeles is the one in a lot of trouble. Twig trying to find that first blood, and that's going to do it.
Lawbster could be in trouble as well with a full minion wave in there, but the Stellar Burst will not be stellar enough to pick up the kill onto either Prime or Twig. But that was Faeles going aggressive, and it was a good play. The bad news is he got picked.
And we saw Lawbster, or it was Lawbster, or no, I'm sorry. It was the mid laner for Dignitas, Zeros, who was playing the Morrigan earlier today and was just using that stun to set up kill after kill after kill for Dig in the late game. This time it's in the early game, but Faeles gets stunned in the middle of the minion wave. He used his entire kit. He used the ambush to get in, then the madness, then the deathbane to put the damage on a Prime. But good recognition from Obey saying, yes, we're low, but Eanix has nothing. We can fight this.
Completely true, and that's just going to give Obey a nice early lead on to the Naja. Feast or famine we were talking about. Well, he's feasting right now as he fails on these elementals on the right-hand side. Ducky, though, caught out and stunned in place, taken to the sky. Are we going to get the Dream one straight away? Not even required. Twig will secure the kill on his own. Second one of the game.
How selfish that they killed Ducky before the second Naja ult could come out from PrettyPriMe. But that's just good. Twig wanted to get fearless in that situation.
Right-hand side, you see Faeles going aggressive there up against maniaK. maniaK's still trying to stand and bang, but with the archers coming into play too, he's got to be more respectful about the amount of input that could have come out there. So Faeles and maniaK will both back to safety. Teleport available, so he'd be okay.
And that's a really poorly timed death for Ducky because he has to use a teleport to get back to lane, but he didn't have boots 3 quite yet, sitting on boots 2. Whereas now maniaK is back to base, teleported in with that completed Warrior tab eye. So that is a big advantage for maniaK in that lane.
And you talk about how tier is at the moment. We've not really spoken about it. Hang on a second, Eanix looking for the baits again onto EmilZy. They've been doing this all day in game 1. In game 2, it's rinse repeat, just a different composition.
3 ults for the support, but what can Obey do to really punish Eanix right now? Not a whole lot. There's no way that PrettyPriMe is going to make some incredible play outside of turning into the Serqet, I suppose. That's what you're really looking for. CaptainTwig doesn't have his ultimate quite yet, and anyways, he's on the right-hand side. Good pick onto EmilZy there.
Now, Ducky on this right-hand side, we mentioned he's behind, only tier 2 boots, but he's playing tier. I waited to bring that up a second ago. Why have we not seen tier so much?
Well, the most recent nerf was that he lost that double heal off of one target with the power cleave. That was the thing that made it so that he couldn't box as well in lane because he couldn't get that big burst heal off of just the enemy god. So he still has a good early game, though. He still has incredible control and damage in the mid game and control in the late game. I think, again, it's just one of those things where he's got a couple bad matchups that you don't want to play him into.
Oh, the catch there. I think Ducky was looking to try and get the Fearless off, but it didn't happen. Twig will steal away the blue buff with the help of maniaK there. Thought it was going to be a pinch on Twig for a second. Instead, it turns around, and with both of the Eanix members here being out of mod, look at the double ring bounce that hit Ducky. It's awkward for them to try and defend this, and Ducky does not have TP.
No, but he's thinking about sticking around. Very little mana without that blue buff. I don't know if he's going to have enough mana to use a heal and a Lawbringer to get away. Yeah, Ducky's indecision there really hurts him. If he would have just backed and right away, not a big deal. You lose that wave, it's fine. But now he's going to lose that wave. He's going to lose pressure on the next wave, most likely as well. Needed to make a quicker decision than that.
I think it's time to see Faeles just give up the goat on that right-hand side now on that solo lane. It's clear that Ducky's going to be behind in this lane now. He's going to be struggling. Sometimes it's worth sending your jungler over there to support, but sometimes it's better to do what he's doing here, try and pressure outwards where, as long as there's no wards involved.
Unfortunately for him, there is a ward involved, and Ataraxia knows exactly where that jungler is. But you're right, I think that at some point, when a lane is super far behind, you're just like, all right, buddy, good luck. Try not to die quite as much. I'm going to try and get a lead on the left-hand side, so then Funballer has a chance to really carry you into the mid to late.
All right, now just 2 members for Obey in the mid lane. Faeles hanging around here. No blink available, so he's going to be relying on the ambush to get over these sort of walls here. Obviously, so can experience through the wall without giving vision of where he is, unless you step on a ward.
And Faeles is 1-1
attracted
right
to
now.
them.
Yeah, he's all over the place.
He's attracted to those wards, that's what it is.
Like a moth to a flame.
Like a bee to honey.
I'm out of analogies, but he definitely has been all over the place, and that's more a credit to Obey's warding, just making sure that they know where Faeles is at all times, because it's also about keeping track of where he is so that CaptainTwig knows where he wants to be. Whether he wants to, try and come and counter gank, someone can bait themselves like Ataraxia who can then get away, or you can just try and go to the other side of the map and get more pressure for someone like maniaKK, who already has a fairly substantial lead.
I do feel like wards have really started to become more prevalent. I keep noticing it more and more that the map is littered much more often in the early game with ward coverage now than we used to see in spring. It was a long time ago, I'd actually say it's towards the end of Season 2, middle of Season 3 at the latest, where wards started to like not be as noticed, not be as prominent on the map. And now we start to go to, everyone's buying multiple wards, which means sentries should be back on the rise as well.
There's always that that ebb and flow, and it's not only in terms of wards, but it's in terms of meta, and it's in terms of team improvement as well. You know, one team starts to not prioritize wards and instead prioritize finishing power items, and then they're winning, and so everyone says, oh, well, if they're not doing it, then we shouldn't do it either. And then another team will just outward you and have more information, and then it's difficult to do anything on the map. And then that starts to come back into the, oh, we should be warding more, that sort of stuff. It's always that kind of trade-off.
Twig was looking for a big old play with a sash there, not going to find it though. May look for Lawbster, doesn't find the ultimate either. EmilZy now comes in for a bit of a tail whip there onto Faeles just to slow him down and advance it onto Twig. He could have been in trouble if they would have aggressed.
But it's honestly better that Twig missed that ultimate, because Lawbster was channeling that to separate as Faeles goes jumping forward. EmilZy immediately into the waters. Funballer was looking to support Faeles with that ultimate as well. But as I mentioned, Lawbster was channeling that to separate, would have become immune midway through that Naja ult, and then all of a sudden Obey's been baiting into a bad fight. Twig needs to be careful about ulting Lawbster at all times. Needs to make sure he doesn't get that 3 off.
Miss there coming out from EmilZy on that block, and EmilZy's in trouble. So on the backside is PrettyPriMe, who has to dance away as Serqet to get back to safety. EmilZy is dead. Eanix even things up for the moment. They're looking at the oracles now. They're both going to go the way of Eanix, so a trade in their favor.
Eanix doesn't go for the Gold Fury, though, and I'm a little bit surprised. It's just the fact that they lost 3 ultimates there in terms of Funballer using it on the bottom left-hand side, and then 2 from Lawbster and Faeles. But they had killed EmilZy, forced PrettyPriMe back to base guaranteed because he had less than 100 HP. Also the fact that Lawbster was a little bit low on mana, a big reason why we don't see Eanix immediately start to pull that Gold Fury.
So only 2-2. Final spawn in there of the elementals on the right-hand side. Next thing over there will be the Portal Demon. So another objective available on the map to contest, just like the Gold Fury. Different rewards, however.
We see that CaptainTwig's immediately going for this Shifter Shield, and I love this idea. Shifter Shield is the Naja item, right? You want to initiate, do a lot of damage, take that 70 power and run with it, throw out the poke with the Universe Ring Toss. All that is great. But then once you're in the middle of everybody, you need defense. Well, that's what Shifter Shields provides. After you go below 50% HP, you're getting more protections. So I love this idea from CaptainTwig. I think that's why, and this is what I expect out of Obey. They look at item changes, they look at meta changes, and don't look to, stay the same as every other team. They're always looking for new, different gods that can take advantage of what's strong at the moment. I think Naja with the Shifter Shield is a perfect pairing.
We can see the net worth on the left-hand side. There's not a big difference between these two teams right now. Obviously, 3 members of Obey above the majority of Eanix here, but not by a large margin.
No, I mean, this is still fairly close. Obey is right there in terms of, they're actually a little bit ahead in terms of gold. The XP basically even. There's a slight lead for Obey on the right side of the map, a slight lead for Eanix on the left side. So basically a wash at this stage. Both of these teams translate very, very well into the late game. CaptainTwig is going to hit that lull in the mid where Naja ult stops doing as much damage, is more about taking someone out of the fight. But then in the late game, it'll be that burst.
Faeles trying to draw attention from Obey at the Gold Fury. The Gold Fury is going to go down shortly. Ataraxia credited for the kill. Eanix get the gold, but they do lose Lawbster in the process.
But what else can Obey do after that pick? Can they force the mid tier 1? Can they force the left tier 1? Just a Lawbster for the Gold Fury, still worth it for Eanix.
Well, but this tier 1 tower, as you said, I think this is the opportunity for them. They zoned around the red buff to make sure the pathing from Eanix couldn't get back to defend this in time, especially with Ducky going back to base and Faeles there. There was nothing they could do to defend the tier 1, so Obey answer it back.
So I think Obey ends up on top of that engagement. Yes, everyone from Eanix gets a little bit more gold because of the Gold Fury than that 100 per from the tier 1 tower, but it's about getting pressure on the map. This opens up more invades on both sides. That mid tower is so important. Now, if you're rooting for Eanix, it's not all bad, because in terms of mid laners who are okay with losing their tier 1 tower, Exactly. Soul has that get out of jail free card with the Disapparate, giving you slow immunity, movement speed, then of course that corporeal form towards the end. So it's not all bad for Eanix.
Cheeky trap from Funballer there. Not sure if that ward was his, but he's going to eat more poke than he bargained for. With PrettyPriMe now coming in, Funballer's like, no, get me out of here. Prime trying to chase him down though for the pickup of the kill with the Serqet ultimate, but he doesn't allow him there in time, and with the ultimate available for BigManTingz, he's one hit from death and running. EmilZy stunting though. He really wanted to pick up the kill. Tingz is low on mana here and has no ultimate. He may fall down instead.
Lurking in the water is going to guarantee it. Prime gets the kill. Now Lawbster's in a bad spot, plucked back. That corporeal form coming up big, but not big enough. Twig finds it.
And Faeles not available for Ducky there as he got tail whips as he landed too. The Wild Hunt is on him. Piggy run, Piggy run. Not from Cernunnos, not this time. Ataraxia picks up Ducky.
What an ult from Ataraxia. That is purely because Twig had just used his beads to get out of the last breath from Faeles, and Twig was guaranteed dead to a Fearless from Ducky. Instead, Ataraxia turns him into the pig with the Wild Hunt, and then Obey cooks him up, no problem whatsoever.
6-2, Paul Demon goes in their favor as well now. After the Gold Fury that went to Eanix, you can see the gold lead is starting to grow, as is, more importantly, the experience.
And this is the Obey that we're used to seeing. Good team fighting and just overall solid understanding of the map. They don't want to force it early on, and this is what I think a lot of the NA teams were observing about all of Europe. Not just Obey, but Obey being the best team in Europe during the spring split certainly embodied this very well, in the sense that they aren't fighting just for the sake of fighting. They're fighting to take something from you. They're fighting to guarantee something that you want to take, and then using that to their advantage and pushing their lead. All of the fights that Obey have taken have been around buffs or camps, or in response to Eanix being the aggressors. Really intelligent play out of them thus far.
Kind of shows you on the player damage too. I mean, there's not been a whole lot of action. The player damage numbers are pretty low for 13 minutes in, I'd say. Most of the time, you're probably expecting a little bit more, probably around 7,000 to 8,000 per player, at least in the solo lane perspective as well, from a Bellona and a tier. But not much damage really going on this game. It's all been focused damage, which is converted to kills.
Exactly. It's not a lot of poke, as you mentioned. But now that Mystical Mail is complete for maniaKK, that poke damage is going to be much more significant. 2 blinks for Eanix between Ducky and Faeles. So PrettyPriMe needs to be careful because the Morrigan is very vulnerable in that base state. Yeah. Now, we saw PrettyPriMe, as soon as he gets jumped on, he turns into the Serqet and uses that mobility to get away. But it does take a little bit of time to get into that transformation. Could see Eanix try and focus down the mid before
Lawbster could be in a bit of trouble there, but a nice dunk from BigManTingz will slow him down. His big man is the focus instead. CC to death and forced to ult in place. Bad news is Lurking in the Waters is waiting as well. In comes the Serqet though, looking for the turnaround from Faeles. Not enough to slow them down though, and instead it's Eanix on the retreat as maniaKK cleans up one and another with the Eagles rally. Will it be trip skis? No! PrettyPriMe takes it away.
It was a great Fearless out of Ducky, but then EmilZy interrupted it with the charge prey. 3 for 0. Obey finds the mid 3v3 core. Only those side laners still alive for Eanix.
And that was Lawbster just being a little bit too far forward, in my opinion. He got caught a little bit far forward, and then it was BigManTingz who had to come to the rescue and put himself in an awkward spot as well.
And it's just, but it's for me, I don't know. Lawbster, yes, not the world's best positioning there,
sure.
But it's just CaptainTwig understanding how much damage he could take at any given time. And look at the item that he's got after the Shifter shield. Another shield. The Gladiator's one this time
Now we've
around.
definitely seen all of it. I knew we'd seen all of it. I knew I was forgetting one. I couldn't remember which.
And it's the Gladiator.
That's why I refused to say it.
There's a cheap tier 2 item. Gives you a little bit of power, a little bit of physical protection, some cooldown as well, but it's also synergizes beautifully with Naja because you're healing for a % of your max HP with every time you damage an enemy god, with a short internal cooldown. So, but that ring toss is so good at just poking people from a distance, and Naja is one of those characters that can be a little bit susceptible to poke at times.
Sure.
So even though between that Gladiator shield heal and that Flaming Spear heal, it's going to be very easy for Twig to take a lot of damage and then heal it up.
I'm not surprised to see some Naja coming back, especially with the ring toss changes, just because in team fights, if it's just a team on team with no minions around, that is a lot of bounties is going to be dealing free damage consistently to the whole squad.
It's dirty in those sorts of jungle team fights where there aren't minions around, because not only are you doing significant damage to everyone else, you're speeding yourself up and you're slowing down the entire enemy team. And plus, if you get something like a Brawler's Beatstick, you're applying anti-heal to the entire enemy team. You're forcing them to spread out, which allows you to pick a target and then execute on them very, very quickly. Naja, when played well, is one of the hardest things to deal with. But like I mentioned, as soon as you fall behind on Naja, it becomes very difficult to be an effective initiator. Now, even when behind, Naja's ultimate is great because it doesn't matter if you're doing damage if you're just taking a big care.
Here we go. Looking for the Gold Fury with Obey. The Gold Fury goes the way of Eanix, stolen, but can they get out in time? Twig's taking one to the skies. Faeles was looking for an exit route. He won't find one now. It's only back to the fountain.
And now Prime transforms into the Serqet, chasing down BigManTingz. Can't get away from that mobility. He's gonna pop himself, but it's not gonna matter. Ataraxia finds both. Even though Eanix get the Gold Fury, Obey with 2 kills.
Is it too early for a Fire Giant call here from them? It looks like they're going that way. The Portal Demon's not up just yet, but it is coming up shortly.
I don't know. With 5 members all this healthy, I don't mind a bait around the Fire Giant, but I don't know if they can actually do it. Eanix is experienced enough to know that this is going to take Obey a while. There aren't a lot of big power spike items online quite yet for Obey.
Only Ducky is the first one coming towards this Fire Giant, and it's going down hella quick. Here comes Lawbster and Funballer around the corner. Lawbster has his ultimate available, but can he get in range to drop the supernova? No is the answer. The Disapparating, the ring toss did so much work. Eagles rally, piggy, piggy, piggy. Aegis is down too, and Twiggy gets the kill.
Only their maniac in that front side. He's gonna get eaten by that Fearless, but EmilZy disrupts the Fearless once more, saving maniac's life. But Eanix get Obey off of the Fire Giant.
And you caught it. It was a bait for the Fire Giant. If somebody comes, go for the kill. Find the kill, get the Portal Demon as a consolation result because of the fact it's now available for us to fall back to, and then continue the pressure next time round.
Twig has to use his Purification Beads after the abduct from BigManTingz. Don't know if Twig got a chance to steal that speed buff or not. No, it looks like it did go the way of Eanix.
You can see that now. It comes up with a ghosty glow.
Yeah, but there was a ward there that was being hovered over, and there was a lot of glowing going on. I just didn't feel comfortable making the call.
There is professional map callers around the world that watch us every day and tweet at us to make sure we know we're wrong.
Oh, I know.
I'm just going to do that work for them, so you get one less tweet. Okay?
I look forward to my tweets. I don't get a lot of mentions.
Someone tweet at Aggro with something positive. I know it's a difficult task to ask, but if you can find one positive thing to tell him today, it will cheer him up.
Someone told me something positive the other day, that my mustache was B tier. That's much higher than I ever thought I'd get.
Oh, you know what I said today?
Wait
till we get back on stream because everyone's going to call it out too. It looks like you've drawn it on.
I have.
It looks like you legit have drawn on your mustache.
You didn't have to tell everyone.
I'm sorry.
I told you that in confidence, Hindu.
Couldn't help it.
I literally borrowed your Sharpie to do it.
I don't have a Sharpie.
Whose Sharpie was that?
I don't know. I never heard of one. Tier 2 in the mid lane though, being focused by Obey now. Still don't have the Fire Giant to the name, and in comes Ducky with the Lawbringer, looking for the Fearless combo. Won't find anything though over the Maniac, and already the Supernova's down from Lawbster. Faeles has to disengage, but Maniac says, no, it's not over yet, my friend. We're coming in. We're taking the tier 2. Will we go for the Phoenix though?
I don't think they can here, Hindu. Just a little bit too much poke damage onto the frontliners. EmilZy and Maniac just slightly too low to continue this siege, at least in the mid lane. Now, he could see Obey transition this pressure into the right-hand side with how pushed up that wave is, but with Faeles still being fairly healthy, Lawbster still full HP, Funball and BigManTingz still have their ultimates as well, while only PrettyPriMe has his on the side of Obey. I like this call by Obey to disengage and farm up their map because they've got a little bit up to farm. That blue buff just dropped by CaptainTwig. Both sets of back harpies. Those oracles are available for the taking on the left-hand side as well.
Both these teams have done so well of controlling the game once they've got a lead. I must say that, like game 1 Eanix, it was all Eanix.
Yes.
There was no real ways back in for Obey. Game 2, even though it's only a 5k lead, you can start to see that stretch being shown in terms of the kills, which have resulted in more objectives.
I think that when everyone was very concerned about the snowball in the game, there were just the slight changes to the Gold Fury and Portal Demon, in my mind, were enough to combat that, because I don't think it was necessarily the map overall. It was how good teams have gotten at holding leads, and these teams just continue to improve at not making mistakes because, like I mentioned earlier, they aren't fighting for no reason anymore. They're fighting over objectives. Their intelligence level has just gone considerably higher, and it's not even every split, but it seems like every week, even the mid-level teams get that much better at holding leads.
Surprisingly enough, though, I'm talking about objectives, but if you look at it, Eanix stole 2 Gold Furies away time and again.
Yeah.
Eanix on the right side, though, looking once again to try and get BigManTingz out of trouble, but he's been flip-flopped and thrown around like a ragdoll. The Scarab is dead, as is his ultimate, as is the speed buff.
3-0-7 now for PrettyPriMe in that mid lane. 4-0-7 for CaptainTwig, who's had a very solid showing on this Naja. Twig looked pretty good on that Camazotz in game 1 as well. The entire team didn't have the same success, but the early game, Twig was really running things for Obey.
Yeah, I think actually the biggest telling point of this game so far, I guess, is Cernunnos versus Cernunnos.
Yeah.
It's the one constant.
And Ataraxia, it just, really looks very comfortable on this god for me. In other, this is not a knock against Funball at all, but as you mentioned, in game 1, he was doing great work, but it was the one ultimate on top left was the one thing that stood out to me to save BigManTingz with that polymorph. But I feel like every time Ataraxia picks Cernunnos, he's finding a new way to use that ultimate to save his team or to stop an engagement or something along those lines. He just looks so comfortable on this god. I always love to see him play it.
I will say the Wild Hunt for me from a Hunter position is probably one of the strongest decisions, strongest Hunter ultimates available, alongside the likes of Ho-Yi, for example. I think that's very strong. But I love what we saw out of Eanix there. Obey, they knew they were going to do Fire Giant. They didn't want to try and contest it, so what they do is they take the Gold Fury, which keeps the gold gap even though there's a couple of tiers, or at least one tier 2 tower left remaining here. They want to try and stand at the Phoenixes. The defense isn't too bad with a Rama and Soul for at least push power, but Serqet's always going to be awkward in sieges.
Twig first one in. He's going to find someone with that Windfire wheels. That saved his life. Now Prime is waiting for him with the Soul out on the bottom, and he's going to blow up Lawbster.
And now Funballer pushed out to the left by maniaKK. No support for Funballer there as the carries, so the tanks in the front line are going down, or should I say Faeles is going down. There's a sash from Twig as well. With that middle Phoenix down, it's all over to the right-hand side.
And look at how healthy everyone on Obey is. PrettyPriMe literally didn't take a tick of damage in that last team fight. Twig the only real one, but he made that was such a big play out of him. He was dead if he doesn't hit that ultimate, 100%, and that's Naja in a nutshell, right? You get yourself in a bad position, and it's, did I hit the ultimate? Sick, we won the team fight. Did I miss the ultimate? Sick, it's a 4v5 for my team.
Well, I know a lot of people were talking about Naja before the change to the ring bounce, saying the problem with Naja is the damage output is good, but it's not worth the risk. You know, you get yourself in so many awkward positions so often. It doesn't feel rewarding enough to play a character like this. Now the extra ring bounce, is it, is the question?
I think that it's player dependent. I do think, I agree with the overall majority saying that Naja is simply too risky at a competitive level, and I tend to agree with that. But if I've got someone who can say, can look at me and say, look, I'm gonna hit 80 to 85% of my ultimates, I'm gonna lose at some team fights because I'm gonna miss my ults. But I mean, we saw what Cope was able to do whenever he was playing with Noble on that relegations roster to help Noble requalify for the SPL. Cope was like 4 and 9, but he was hitting every blink ult and setting up Noble to win every single team fight with that blink ult. It doesn't matter if you're not doing well outside of that. That's Naja's job in the late game, is just to take a priority target out of the team fight. And if you can guarantee that, there are very few junglers that can be that impactful in the late game.
Well, Obey only have one more lane to siege down here. Tier 1 and Tier 2 still standing in the duo lane. Won't take long, though, with a Fire Giant and Ataraxia running at it, and it doesn't even help more the fact the rest of Obey are joining in too.
And there's plenty of damage even without Ataraxia there. PrettyPrime's got that Obsidian Shard done, the Spear of Desolation, a fully stacked Book of Thoth. No Rod of Tahuti quite yet. I don't know if he's even going to get a chance to start it up. He's gone for the power potion here, picking up that purple pot, expecting to end the game right here.
So how do you defend this as Eanix? What do? Do you send Faeles in real quick?
You hope that CaptainTwig misses his ult and then win the team fight from there. Well, you wait for Twig to engage.
Ducky walking forward, trying to keep him in combat so he can't blink over the back. Meanwhile, the Phoenix is already going down. Twig blinks in at the same time as the rest of his team focus Ducky. Ducky's still standing for now, but the crits from Ataraxia are hurting. Twig is dead, but so is Ducky. And there's a revive coming out onto EmilZy, which came out from Prime of all people. Prime transforming into the Scarab, looking to try and keep CaptainTwig alive just a little bit too late.
It almost worked. That was the entire gameplay, and that's another reason why we see the Morrigan here, is that Twig on this Naja may just suicide sometimes like that. And if you have a Khepri on your team, you could save him. Good idea, just a little bit off on the execution.
Fire minions from the right, fire minions from the middle, and the whole of Obey outside of Twig are standing by, trying to bring down the Titan, as well as Lawbster. Cancelled out, it'll be Faeles, who's forced to revive by maniaKK, but the flip will keep Tings in an awkward spot instead. They're hunting kills, Obey, they want that KDA.
17 now in total for them, and they're marching down into this Titan room. Even without Twig, they're in a good position here because of how many fire minions there are. Lawbster could clear a decent amount, but it's going to be difficult to keep their Titans safe.
Interesting that they choose to reset there. A little bit worried with the lack of ultimates available for them, I guess, to try and finish it off, as well as the Fire Giant deep buff wearing off them as well. It's causing them a lot of problems.
That's true, and with Twig just now respawning and coming back from base, he's got to walk all the way there, whereas Ducky respawns and is ready to fight. if you're in his own Titan room. So I respect the call from Obey. Even though they're up, you know, an exorbitant amount of gold, Eanix has a composition that if you give them an inch, they can really knock down a ton of towers. Now, this is the exact same position Obey was in last game, right? Where they're in their own Titan room. You haven't even touched really a tower on the opposite side. But this composition from Eanix is much better at sieging down those towers than that of Obey in the last game.
So if we say Obey should win this game, what is the biggest result for you today? When you look at all the games that we saw today, we saw Energy versus Rival, Obey versus Eanix, Pappies versus Elevate, all splits. All splits.
The fact that Eanix gets a point here, because Obey, you know, coming in, the Spring Split champions,
#1, right?
yeah, they were still seen as #1. I think everyone was expecting Eanix to put up a fight here, but not really find a point. They certainly did. They dominated Obey in game 1 and in totality. So I really think that Eanix, this is them saying, if you were worried about, you know, who was going to go to Valencia between Energy, Obey, Dignitas, and Rival, don't forget about us, because we're right in that conversation.
Europe is really tight right now when you think about it. I'm pretty sure when they do the analysis at the post-game desk for the day, you'll see how close these brackets really are. With most teams sticking up splits, it could still be anyone's game. Twig flicked early there, got the ultimate out of Funballer, who was ready, and actually cleaned up Ducky. Because of that, Ataraxia gets that, and Twig is now going in again.
Lawbster has that Scarab's Blessing on top of him. It is going to get popped. He's going to get back into his base fairly safely here, but it created enough space. Obey starting to shred down that Titan, and they're going to take game 2 up against Eanix.
1-1 for the day. Obey and Eanix split it right down the middle, and for some that'll be surprising, for others could have been expected.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Eanix, this roster has so much potential. It's right there. You see what Faeles is able to do in this kind of team environment. And their compositions is another thing that, you know, when I think of teams that are willing to experiment and bring new comps to the pro league, you know, you think of Obey, you think of Eager, you think of teams like that. But Eanix has done it consistently as well. Remember, they were the ones at the very beginning of Season 4. They're running that triple Guardian, double Hunter sort of composition, and they're always willing to try and find something new. I mean, look, Ymir Freeze into Nemald into Kraken isn't anything new per se, but their team compositions always seem to work well together.
And that's the thing about Season 4 as well, is every season it takes a good majority of that whole year for teams to really work out what the real meta is.
Sure.
Spring meta is over. Summer meta's here. Will we get a fall one? We'll find out later, but for now, let's go to the post-game desk to break down the entire day.
Thanks so much, Hindu. And what a day it has been on the side of Europe SPL.
Absolutely. You know, despite that 2-0 Dignitas did to Burrito Esports, every other set was the split 1-1.
I would say it's pretty surprising to most people, too. I don't think that a lot of people were really in. Well, I guess maybe for Elevate and the Poppies, you can say that's a little bit more anticipated. Elevate are notorious for splitting with teams, but Poppies well played to them for stepping it up and coming back after that 19-minute defeat.
Yeah.
Just immediately turning the tables and giving us a 43-minute run of the show.
It's no easy task as a player to be able to be put through the ringer like that. You're being beaten so badly, you're forced to go into surrender pre-20-minute mark. You're down 16-0, but for Poppies to be able to bounce back in that second game was so crucial. And that second game from Elevate versus Poppies, I'm looking at Ojo Boom on the Soul there. His damage in the late game was just out of this world.
Ojo Boom certainly had a whole lot going for him on the Soul, and the burst potential overall is just always a nice addition to a team environment. And I think that overall this team certainly has a lot of development that they can go towards and take with them through the summer split. Maybe not necessarily into Valencia, but either way, this is a very important part for them to start building on their team.
They definitely need to figure out their identity, because Dalo on this jungler was doing so much work, but Nika as well on the Thorn that first game was the reasoning why they got off to that crazy 16-0 win. It was just so easy for him to make the plays with his global presence god.
Snowball potential is always an aspect, especially when somebody like Nika starts popping off in game number 1. But like I said, we had a very interesting day of EU SPL, and now we're going to take a look at the standings to see where all these teams line up after this first weekend in the summer split. And already Dignitas pulling ahead of the pack with their 6 points due to their 2-set victories. Eanix trailing not too far behind though with 4, and then everybody else 1 or 0.
Well, pretty much that's going to be the case with Eanix and Dignitas playing 2 sets currently. Everyone else will have their chance to catch up to those games, whereas Poppies and Elevate, they also have played that second game set, but they were the unfortunate victims of Team Dignitas' wrath.
And these teams are certainly looking to try and find a bigger impact coming in the coming weeks for the Summer Split. They don't have a whole lot of time. This is only a 5 weeks and running, 4 weeks now. So it's pretty much do or die.
Every week counts. Doesn't matter if you're Europe or North America.
And I'm sure for both regions involved, especially for EU, like we saw the games already that happened today, and I really have to hand it to Eanix. It's certainly a roster with a ton of potential, but the fact is they found, I would say, what is a bit of an upset split against Obey.
Absolutely. Obey looked like the best team in the world, not just out of their region. They won the last Masters LAN, and they did it very cleanly. I think the telltale sign of this game was who got Cernunnos, because whoever had it, whether it was Funballer or Ataraxia, did so much work that game.
It really just came down to, I think, the drafting synergy just surrounding the team for Eanix. That Nemesis, Kraken, and Emir Freeze combination was completely devastating to Obey, and their draft just seemed a little bit too late game oriented to try and revamp after Eanix got off to such a great start.
And Lawbster playing his staple Poseidon pick. He loves this god so much, finding so many easy, clean picks against whether PrettyPriMe, whether it was Ataraxia. The pairing up these ultimates with the Nemesis, just finding even more damage with the protection shred from that ultimate.
It was just really unfortunate because Ataraxia on the other end with the Jingwei just seemed like he couldn't really make anything happen. Wasn't the case in game number 2, like you mentioned. He was the one who managed to pick up the Cernunnos second time around, and so Obey were able to bounce back, but Eanix being such a new team, having Ducky and Faeles coming into their roster changes, I still think that they look like a team that's been playing together for much longer than just this beginning of the summer split.
Well, they still have so much history between them, right? You have Lawbster in the mid lane, you're having Funballer there in the duo lane, and these two players specifically provide so much experience to make it very easy for Ducky and Faeles to fit in right into plays. I think these two players specifically for Eanix is the best thing that could have happened to Lawbster and Funballer, just to get some new blood and get some new motivation within them.
I think that most people would agree that they were probably two of the stronger possible pickups in the EU region that Eanix could have acquired. Elevate not too happy, probably losing Faeles on one hand, but Nika, we saw he's been doing a lot better, I think, this time around. He seems much more confident in the jungle role compared to Thursday's set. And sure, it was a split, but it's still a lot to look forward to. But of course, that was just the EU action that we had going here today, guys. And following up tomorrow, we'll actually be getting into North America side of things to see how these teams are going to play out. And again, a lot of spicy matchups coming your way.
Absolutely. First match is going to be Luminosity versus Noble. E-United against Memory of Gabe. Some interesting switch-ups there happening. Allegiance versus Flashpoint is going to be your third game of the day. And to wrap things up for tomorrow, Eager against Monkey Madness.
And that's really a matchup that I'm looking to keep an eye on, is to see how Eager's latest jungle acquirement plays out when it comes to the competitive side of things. But that isn't the only Smite action that you can make sure to stay involved in. If you go ahead and party up back at home, guys, we have a promo going on with the 3x Worshippers, Favor, and FP. So you want to make sure that you're partied up with a friend and get 3x everything.
It's a party in the SPL, it's a party into Smite, it's a party here at hi-rez Studios.
And like we said, guys, a lot of fun things coming your way. We've already seen some great matches from EU side of things. Tomorrow, make sure you tune in for all the action for North America to see where all those teams are going to be standing after the first week in the SPL. And from everybody here at hi-rez, have a good night.